Hello, welcome everyone. Welcome to Startup Blues inaugural community event. So thank you all for attending today, taking some time out of your busy lives this Thursday evening, hopefully delaying potentially your for dinner with family or friends to come learn about the blue economy. And to everyone participating online, everyone here, if you're an inventor, if you're a public official, or if you're just someone who was curious to chime in and sit at home and learn about this topic, every one of you attending today is really important to Oregon's blue economy. So we really appreciate your presence and participation. So a lot of people helped with the setup of this event. Special shout out to Dave Price for lending all this equipment that you probably can't see right now, along with Judy Hardy and Nikki Price for having this event space prepped, since it definitely beats running this webinar from home on a computer laptop. So in terms of viewers at home, what's the number of participants we're at, Dave? 13. Awesome. Love to see it. Just so you know, we're treating this like an online webinar. So if you're a little confused about your mic or camera being disabled, it's totally intentional. It's just to ensure that we keep the audio and visual here on stage for everyone at home. We also got Dave behind the scene monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions, comments, technical issues, he'll be there to help out. We'll also reserve your questions for the Q&A session later after the pre-planned questioning. So sit tight on that. And then worst case, if we don't get to your questions at home, we'll make sure to address them tomorrow. That'll be by me. So anticipate an email for me tomorrow, if that's the case. So housekeeping done. On to introductions. For starters, hi, my name is Connor Nolan. I'm the Blue Economy Innovation Catalyst here on the Oregon coast. Many of you might have heard my title or met me before, but like maybe you haven't heard the story of why I'm here. So quick background. For the past 10 years, most of my time in Oregon has been in Portland and Eugene. As I was getting my MBA at the University of Oregon, I had full intention of staying in the Valley and working for a startup out there. But a leap of faith, I took an internship out on the rural coast in Port Orford to work on a startup project on upcycling fish waste for commercial use with a processor named Port Orford Sustainable Seafood. Just check them out. But seeing the stark difference between living in the cities in the Valley and then being in a little fishing town, it was really eye-opening for me. It was invigorating to see the work ethic and the resiliency of a lot of the fishermen out in Port Orford, and the importance of having a small startup like Port Orford Sustainable Seafood really enrich the livelihoods of the fishermen there by simply just giving them more pay for their catch, especially in a community where every job really matters. So it just showed me the importance of entrepreneurship and innovation in areas that aren't the San Franciscos or the New Yorks of the world. And I'm lucky enough to be funded by the Economic Development Administration through a partnership with Hatfield Marine Science Center to support and accelerate the commercialization of blue economy related tools, technologies, and startups here on the coast. So Hatfield handles all the product engineering, the design work, all that technology, while I'm here doing community outreach, engagement, and entrepreneurial support, as you see here. So that brings us to why we're here and why I'm hosting this. And mostly it was just to facilitate a discussion around Oregon's blue economy. We want those listening online and here in person just to better understand, what this whole blue economy thing is, without it feeling like a term that's like reserved for subject matter experts. Because admittedly, none of us sitting here are true subject matter experts on the blue economy, and that's totally fine. If anything, it showcases different perspectives regarding the term and the meaning on the blue economy. And it really gives us an opportunity to reflect on like our own experiences living here on the coast with the ocean, with the maritime industry, with other industries that exist here, so we can come together and embrace not only the accomplishments that these individuals here have made within the community, much like yourselves as well, but also embrace ideas around building Oregon's blue economy. Because as with entrepreneurship, we're trying to create a space of exploration and learning. And we're all here to make this a more prosperous and better community here on the coast. So let's uncover how we can play a role in supporting the aspirations of marine-based entrepreneurship. So that is my long-winded introduction. I'll move it on to Jeremy here, and we'll just go around the table.
All right, thanks for having me. My name is Jeremy Childress. I run a small company in Salem, Oregon. It's a marine technology firm called the Sexton Corporation. And we have a machine shop, an engineering staff, and assembly staff, and we build products that are sold around the world for private industry, for research institutions, and government entities. I attended Oregon State University for my graduate work in marine resource management, and thought that I might eventually get a job at the coast, but ended up kind of morphing into this technology career, which is the nexus between marine scientists and we do work with fishermen and other clients along the coast who are users of equipment, who might use this technology to help improve their fishing activity or something like that. And it's been a really exciting space to be in. So the paradigm that I think of blue economy is kind of from a technology spin, and also how do we create and educate a workforce that we can use locally, specifically here in Oregon. So that's what I hope to kind of convey in this panel today. So again, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy. Yeah, I'm Paul Skydema. I'm the executive director of the Economic Development Alliance of Lincoln County, and we're a countywide traditional economic development organization, but we're also trying to look at some new school approaches to grow the economic vitality, not only of Lincoln County, but of our region. And one of our organization's strategic priorities is the blue economy, because there are underutilized assets and opportunities here. And we also have smack dab in the center of Oregon's coast, one of the world's great marine research centers. And I mean, if that's not an asset to start building a reef of opportunity around, I don't know what it is. My background is in software development. I spent most of my career designing software, both entertainment games and educational, they call them serious games, both for my own company and for the University of Illinois Center for Creative Software Development. And I kind of discovered economic development through the back door when I realized the importance of public-private partnerships in the rural space, and that you really can't move the needle unless you've got policymakers and lawmakers at the local and regional level working with the businesses. And I've been really intrigued and interested, and I've been doing full-time rural economic development in the Midwest and now out on the Oregon coast for the last 13 years. And it's really a high touch thing. It's basically, we're kind of like the eHarmony of business. We try to bring a resource and a business together to the first kiss, and then we step back and hopefully they have a second date. And I'll just leave it at that because I'm going deeper and deeper.
Hi, everybody in the audience and in Zoom and everybody on the panel. My name is Erika Sears, and I'm the Deputy Director of the Oregon Coast Visitors Association, or OCVA. We are a coastal nonprofit focused on tourism along the entire Oregon coast. That's partnerships, projects, funding, and aligning, I guess, some products of eHarmony that happens over here. Additionally, we are the official regional destination management organization for the coast as designated by the Oregon Tourism Commission, doing business as Travel Oregon. So workforce boards have different regions in Oregon. Business Oregon has different regions. Tourism also has different regions. So we're really charged with the most incredible region in Oregon, which is the coast. Additionally, I am here as the host of Big Tourism, a podcast focused on tourism, destination management trends, case studies, thought leadership in this space. So you'll see a microphone here and the computer. That's what we have going on. And there's a lot of other amazing shows on the American Shoreline Podcast Network. And one I would just point you to is on the blue economy. So if you leave here today thinking, hey, I want to know a little bit more or what's going on in this space, check out the American Shoreline Podcast Network. And the host of that show is one of the former heads of NOAA that created that within the administration. So he's the guy to talk to about blue economy. And then lastly, and maybe most importantly, I'm here as a coastal resident. I am from Tierra del Mar. My family has been there for generations. And so obviously I'm in the tourism industry, but former generations have been in the timber industry, education. My partner's family is also from Pacific City and has also been commercial fishing. And so when I think about these conversations and the solutions, what we're working towards, it's also quite personal and understanding what the future generations of my family will have as far as economic opportunity, livability here in our region. So bringing a sense of personal and professional commitment to this conversation. And I always approach things with just a sense of curiosity. So I'm excited to learn from the other panelists today.
Well, hi, everybody, all of you out there in our vast virtual audience here in person in the room, and to anybody who may be watching this program later on. I'm David Gomberg, State Representative from here on the Central Coast. I am now in my 5th term, which means my 10th year representing the best part of Oregon, the part that stretches from Tillamook to Yachats along the coast and also goes inland as far as Sheridan and Grand Ronde. And when I'm in Salem, the last several sessions, I have been serving as the co-chair of the Transportation and Economic Development Subcommittee of Ways and Means, which is a fancy way of saying I handle state budgets that deal with Business Oregon, with housing, with the employment division, and a number of other technically and business and opportunity oriented subject matters. I'm also the vice chair of the full Ways and Means Committee. And for the last year, I've been serving as the chair of the Coastal Caucus, which is that group of legislators, both senators and representatives, who have districts stretching along the length, all 365 miles of the Oregon coast. My own personal background, I'm an Oregon State graduate in political science a long time ago. And immediately after that, got my master's degree in political science, economics, and history. Finished that up with a degree intended to help me actually get a job, and that is my MBA at Willamette University. And we moved here to the coast 33 years ago, my wife Susan and I, and eventually built a local, national, and international kite business. We kind of euphemistically tell people we were in the aviation industry, although it was tethered aviation. But the point here being that we brought in containers from overseas, we shipped product around the world, we did manufacturing and design, web pages, and a series of local retail stores. So whether we're talking about the aviation industry or the blue economy, we understand the challenges that are involved with starting, sustaining, and transitioning a small local business. So I'm excited to talk tonight about the opportunities and the challenges that the blue economy are presenting to us here tonight. I can't wait to hear the questions and the panel's answers.
Thanks, Rep. Gomberg. Hi, everyone out there and over here. My name is Heather DeSart, and I am the Executive Director of Northwest Oregon Works. And we are the local workforce development board that serves a 5-county region: Columbia, Clatsop, Tillamook, Lincoln, and Benton County, all of which have ties to the maritime or blue economy. With the Columbia Waterway and the coastal counties, and then with Benton County and the OHU Hatfield Marine Center. I don't know if I said that right. So thank you so much for having me here tonight. My background is in workforce development, and I've started that in 2000 and have since moved to Oregon in 2015. And it was a rough first year because of all of the rain and the weather differences. But I came to realize after living here for a full year and enjoying all of the 4 seasons that you can't have the beauty and the lushness that's here without that rain. So I love it here now, and I've been welcomed with open arms by the Oregonians. This is a really kind state, in my opinion. So I'm here under the purview of the Workforce Investment Board. We have federal funds that come down from the Department of Labor, flow through the Higher Education Coordinating Commission out to the 9 local boards that are in the state of Oregon. And we also have some general funds to help us with our sector initiatives. So our local board has approved and identified the maritime sector as one of our sectors for investment. And so I've been talking about this and working with other interested parties, way back with Senate Bill 867. We can talk more about that later on, but I have a keen interest in making sure that our dollars go towards the training and the placement and the talent pool for the marine industry. And one thing I've learned over the years is that there, as with many industries in the state of Oregon, there's an aging workforce getting ready to depart and retire. And the pipeline is not as strong as it needs to be in order to sustain not only the current industries that are working in this in the maritime industry, but also the new and emerging ones based on technology that's coming out every day. So anyway, I'm excited to be here. I'm also excited to learn from my peers and to share what I know based on the journey I've been on with maritime industry thus far. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. Well, before we get truly started, we have one more introduction I wanted someone to make. All this here and our goal in commercializing blue tech and startups here on the coast wouldn't be possible without the partnership and the resources and the subject matter expertise of those at Hatfield, especially that of Biles, Hatfield's Marine Science Center iLab manager. So I'd want him to introduce himself and kind of explain his role in this ecosystem as well. So.
Yeah. I didn't trip on any of the chords. I'm off to a good start. Howdy. So hello, everyone here, as well as everyone online. My name is Biles, as Connor has just said. I'm really a newcomer to this space. I joined the Hatfield group in the fall as we were getting the new building and our whole new facility up and online. Part of that was the innovation lab. So this is a professional student experience maker space where we really think about prototyping a lot of the solutions focused towards some of these maritime challenges that I'm sure we're going to be talking about. It serves a number of different pieces. One of the pieces, as we mentioned, is adding on to that really sophisticated and advanced research center that sits on the Oregon coast, where we have this really wonderful piece of technology now sitting in a rural environment. So we have these unique challenges that we can try to address. The other piece that I feel passionate about, and I'm really happy to see as we're growing in that space, is accessing the student pool that we're training through Oregon State University or the other students we bring in through REUs or internships or scholarships. So giving the students a space where they can get hands-on experiential learning projects while that's also serving the community that they sit within, I think is a really important piece and is something that we're really looking to utilize the Innovation Lab as well as Hatfield broadly for. I feel really lucky to have come into this space. My background is in engineering. I taught ocean engineering and instrumentation for a while and feel that the blue economy in the maritime space is a really unique one. I mean, from the people we have sitting on this table, it brings all of these different aspects together: tourism, engineering, economy. And a term that I heard the other day that I think really speaks it well is, what other spaces have a triple bottom line like the blue economy, where you're serving people, the economy, and the environment all at the same time and moving everything forward? So I think a space that can address all three of those and grow a learning environment there is a really wonderful one. So excited to be here, excited to learn. Really just excited to be here. We'll say that twice. Thank you. And I'll give this back over to Connor.
Yeah, thank you so much, Drummond.
Yeah, cheers.
Yeah, Drummond may have maybe not quite stole, but my definition of the blue economy is definitely a triple bottom line focus. So spoilers already shown on that one, but we'll get to learning everyone else's definition here in a second. So yeah, let's get this going. So this first question, I like everyone to answer individually. We'll start with Jeremy here. Just going down the row, how do you define the blue economy, and why is it related to you and your organization?
Sure. So the blue economy, from my background as a student doing cooperative research with fishermen and working with government officials, is it's multifaceted and changes over time as my career progresses. So it's, as I mentioned earlier, it's kind of the nexus between people and technology and the way that people use these products. There's, companies along the coast, and sorry, I'm kind of spacing out here a little bit. It's that broad. So the way it works for me is engaging with these different community members and industries, and addressing unique problems, and then being able to see this equipment installed. So yeah, I think I can probably add a little bit more later, but pass it down.
And I'll start off being a little flippant here, but it's actually pretty accurate. Is, as an economic developer, it's the intersection of cash and saltwater on the coast. But actually, for our organization, we try to look at it as a little bit more of a functional definition, which is economic enterprises that have potential for growth, economic assets with potential energy, and also career pathways to meet that aging workforce and tomorrow's workforce needs that could hopefully create living wage and high wage opportunities for coastal youth to have a career path that's meaningful and satisfying, and also innovative opportunities, entrepreneurship, invention, energy, aquaculture, those kind of things that can accrete and sort of build off of the assets that we already have. And I'm really focused on the way our coast is set up geography-wise, logistic-wise, and the fact that we're behind some of the other West Coast blue efforts. It makes no sense really to try to create something new. It's more about developing the assets and the talents that we have here and finding those opportunities and those overlaps.
Yeah, and I feel like I don't have like the definition because apparently nobody does. But when I think about the blue economy, and I feel like I've really only learned about it in the past year, maybe heard the term or have becoming familiar with it, but I feel like the blue economy is like the why of why we're all together. I think we've all been working towards sustainability, towards, economic prosperity, towards workforce, but now it's like that vision statement, is like always so visionary. And it's like, hey, Paul, we should have a meeting together. Why? The blue economy, like that's what it feels like to me. It's like this aspirational thing that we're all working towards. So it's really exciting. And the words that come to mind when I think of the blue economy are coastal resiliency, livelihoods, economic prosperity, and possibly most importantly, a healthy ocean. So for us, a healthy Pacific Ocean, because without that, we don't have the other things. So that's the why. I'm going to just sign off emails now like blue economy. And then how it relates to tourism or why tourism should be here. I think there's a couple of different reasons. So here are just some fun facts for everybody. 80% of all tourism worldwide happens in coastal areas. Humans are just drawn to the ocean. They're drawn to that blue. So no matter where this panel is taking place, it's happening in Florida or Thailand or Maine, there probably should be a tourism perspective there because it probably is part of the economy. Additionally, it's one of the biggest, if not the biggest sector of the blue economy currently, according to NOAA. So we are a really big, important part of that. I have a very cool example for you a little bit later. And then here on the Oregon coast, we are one of the top 3 export-oriented industries for the coast of the biggest, alongside ag and timber. So we have been for a long time and continue to be a very important, crucial part of our economy, of livelihoods, and just the identity of the Oregon coast. So that's kind of my why I think of why we're here.
Wow, good stuff. Good stuff so far. Yeah, I think about the blue economy. I think about how we improve and sustain our existing opportunities and how we find new opportunities, all related both to the ocean and the brackish waters that run into them. And the reason we're interested in all of that is because we want to create new sustainable businesses and living wage jobs within those businesses, whether, as I said, they are existing businesses or new business opportunities. You know, and I look up and down the coast and I see so many remarkable different kinds of applications and different kinds of examples. And I'm just going to touch on 3 of them really quickly because they came to mind to me this week. And the first one is that we got a cruise ship landing in Astoria this week, bringing thousands of people and multiple thousands of dollars ashore to spend in that community before they get back on the boat. At the other end of Oregon, well, further down the coast, at least in Coos Bay, there is work underway to create another opportunity for big boats. And they're not going to come in filled with tourists. They're going to come in filled with containers that are either going to deliver products to us that we need or take our products to overseas markets. So there's a different kind of opportunity that is blue related and also related to big boats. And then there's something else going on right in the middle, which we've touched on, but I just find fascinating because here on the Central Coast, we have got what I sincerely believe will soon be regarded as the leading institution of ocean science on the entire planet, quickly evolving in that direction. But let me give you a slightly different example rather than the new ocean science building, which is going to bring hundreds of new employees and hundreds of new students to the coast. I want to talk about the wave energy complex that's just getting completed a little bit further south down the coast. Now, this is the only testing facility for wave energy on either the East Coast or the West Coast of the United States. And it's an $80 million investment out there that's just getting wrapped up. Those are real dollars and those are real jobs and those are real opportunities. We want to talk about wave energy, whether it's creating jobs or whether it's creating a sustainable energy future in the green economy. So 3 different kinds of things going on there. I just think it's really important when we talk about the blue economy, we are talking not only about new opportunities, but also strengthening and sustaining some of the industries that we already have here.
Wow, that's going to be hard to follow. I would say that obviously my role here is to be part of an ecosystem that, you know, helps to bring economic prosperity and ecological health to our waterways and to the coast in general, and also throughout the state. I mean, there are feeder companies that work in the maritime space or blue economy space that are not necessarily located on the coast. So I am excited to be a part of that. My job, what I'm tasked with those Department of Labor funds, is to make sure that the businesses have the workforce that they need, that they're trained, skilled, making a livable wage, family sustaining wages. And so I'm not sure if there's a description or a definition in there somewhere, but I would just say that I consider this, you know, it's going to take a village for us to get where we want to go with this. I think a lot of progress has already happened. I'm happy to be a teeny tiny piece of that progress, but really excited, glad that you came on board, Connor, and we have someone who's focused and dedicated just on this while we all wear all of our other hats. Having someone who's dedicated to the work is really exciting for the progress going forward.
Well, thank you, Heather. That was kind words. Well, this next question, I originally had it specifically for Paul and Jeremy, but I think also it would be great to kind of have open forum on it. So what type of industry do you all think is ripe for innovation here in Oregon? And is it something we can accomplish here along the Oregon coast?
Well, again, as a small business owner that's situated in the Willamette Valley, so not along the coast. There are, big considerations about moving to the coast or what that would look like, either and having kind of a footprint out here. So owning, large pieces of equipment that need servicing, access to raw materials, metals and plastics, and components, and being able to get things shipped in the next day, or being able to go to a store in a larger city and being able to get it the same day if I need that to be able to ship a product. Those are very important things to me, and that has been a hindrance from maybe having a footprint, or for other companies to establish a technological footprint along the coast. So I think if some of those things could be addressed, that might help to spur innovation and more companies to want to invest and want to locate into these areas.
And yeah, this is a challenging kind of gotcha question, but one of the things when you think about innovation, a lot of times you think invention, but it's not always that. Sometimes innovation can be in distribution, it can be in marketing, it can be things like that. And one of the things I think of is like the ACFA, the grant to be able to keep more local seafood being eaten locally. That is an innovative way to look at keeping products and those dollars local. I think there's some great opportunities there, because so much of that product goes away and then goes elsewhere, or either gets some value added and comes back. And it just seems like there's an extra step there that there doesn't need to be. The other thing that just I see, and again, my lens is pretty close in, but if you look at like the commercial fishing that's going on in the Newport area, and it's happening out of there, there's a whole lot of build a better mousetrap innovation, not necessarily like big, large scale, huge dollar things, but the folks who are having to do that work every day, coming up with different ways to do it better, to do it safer, to make it so that their effort yields more results. And I think really that's where there's going to be a lot of local innovation, and that's exactly where that pathway through like the iLab and if a commercial fisherman or a couple crew members have an idea, there's a way to get there. And part of our job with that innovation is to help them discover that pathway and kind of hold their hands going forward. But yeah, those are two things that I think about all the time.
Well, I liked one of your examples. That was going to be mine too. I kind of hesitated when you asked the question, because the way that we're primarily funded is through the state transient lodging tax. So the state wouldn't necessarily love for me to be like, well, hello, timber, this is what you should be doing better. Or like, I'm going to bring a new industry to the coast, but, framing it that way, like, how can we improve the systems that we already have? I think there are certainly ways that we can improve tourism. And one of the ways that my executive director, Marcus Hinz, often talks about is in 2018, which was this last data set we got before the chaos of the pandemic, visitors spent nearly $800 million on food here on the Oregon coast. So this incredible buying power that's coming here year over year. They want to buy local food. They want to have that authentic experience. But then this recent research that we have, a report coming out this spring, shows that 90% of the seafood bought on the Oregon coast is not Oregon coast seafood. So we are really supporting Washington's economy and Alaska's. So what are the ways that we could actually just be buying our own? And that really requires investments in infrastructure and seafood processing. So we recently received a $750,000-ish federal grant to start working on exactly that. So that's one way I think of innovation. Something I'm also really excited about is Oregon seaweed. And I really hope that was going to come up tonight. And I don't know if it's new as far as that. I think it's been around now for like 10 years or maybe longer, but the fact that we have the seaweed that's taking carbon out of the air, it's being grown in Bandon and in Garibaldi. If you fry it up a certain way, it tastes like bacon. And we're starting to see it be integrated on the menus of these restaurants where visitors are spending their dollars. So they are buying this local seafood product that's also carbon neutral, and it's very unique to the Oregon coast. So I think there's interesting innovations like that happening where the tourism industry can say, hey, this is part of the experience here. Like, we want you to be giving your dollars and keeping them locally.
Adults Benedict.
Oh, there we go.
Well, if you were listening to me a couple of minutes ago, you know I'm a believer in the opportunities that science provides us at the Marine Science Center, at the Wave Energy Center, at NOAA, and the ripple effect that that has to our entire economy. Because when shellfish start to die off in Netarts Bay, you call Hatfield, and Hatfield comes up with a solution to that problem. When our crabbing season are delayed because of problems with the growth or the strength of the crabs that they want to catch, we call Hatfield for answers. And oh, by the way, if we're interested in hypoxia, acidification, rising water levels, warming water levels, all of those critically important issues to our collective future, I think that there is an opportunity to have them addressed at Hatfield. But just in case there's anybody listening out there that that doesn't have a PhD or doesn't have millions and millions of dollars to invest in these research opportunities, I want to jump to the other end of the scale, and I want to talk about small business. That's where innovation comes from. And you talked about dulse, which, by the way, I don't really think it tastes like bacon yet, unless you fry it in fat. But be that as it may, there's an opportunity there, and it's going to grow into a sustainable product. And I also talk about taking kelp and other seaweeds and using that for cattle feed. Which, oh, by the way, reduces methane output by 40 to 60%. And I can imagine all of these cottage industries where people are growing kelp in their garage, and a pickup truck comes around, not like an open back pickup truck, but like a UPS truck comes around once a week to pick up the seaweed and take it off to the central processing center. And suddenly we've got all these, quite literally, cottage industries. I look to the innovation of small industries, small businesses, and everyday individual people that harbor these dreams of applying their experience, their creativity, and their economic courage to make something out of nothing and turn it into a business, an income opportunity for themselves and their families, and jobs for the people in our community. Those are a big ticket example at one end of the spectrum, and a lower cost opportunity at the other end of the spectrum. And combined, I think that they give us some real innovative opportunities.
So, excuse me, I have a little bit of a different take on this than everyone else, like the fancy science words and all of that stuff. But I can say that one thing that I see as a real opportunity in innovation is finding a way to pluck the young people out of high schools, even middle school, a extensive list of occupations within the industry that were sort of mined through the Senate bill and the Maritime Task Force. There's just no end in sight in terms of what young people can be interested, or if we could just try to capture their interest in the maritime industry. I think that that's an untapped resource, because we need them. Because my main goal is to make sure that the workforce is there to make the businesses thrive. And when I see that there's an aging out workforce, that's a red flag that needs immediate attention, in my opinion.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. I think that's actually a great segue, because I like how everyone kind of hinted at that there's multiple forms of innovation, right? It doesn't have to be super high tech, brand new. It can just be like improving upon what already exists. And with that, everyone kind of gave their answer a little bit, but I'm curious, like, who in our community is like the next marine-based, like, technological innovator that we haven't really been able to reach, or have them, come in with open arms on, like, wanting to help them with their potential idea?
I'll jump in here because there's like a moment of silence. Like, what? Well, I mean, I think the thing, and this is especially a problem in a rural environment, doesn't necessarily mean a blue environment, but the whole idea of the discoverability of opportunities. And Heather talked about it when she was talking about how to capture that youth flow. And part of that, you're trying to capture them at like 7th or 8th grade. And, and things like, STEM at Sea and those kind of great programs can sell the sizzle with the bacon. But I think the other thing is panels like this, efforts like your position, where part of what I'm guessing your responsibility is to go out there and sort of bang the drum and be the Pied Piper of this, to let folks know that, because so much innovation and so many new breakthroughs and products and small businesses come from folks who don't necessarily know that they're having a breakthrough. Sometimes they need that helping hand. They need someone to help them discover that opportunity and think entrepreneurially. So I'll just kind of leave it at that.
Yeah, I want to answer your question in just a minute, but I almost wanted to grab the microphone away from Heather and say yes, 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 because the greatest export that we have here on the coast is not fish, it's not timber, it's not science, it's young people, talented young people that are leaving the coast, looking for opportunities and good paying jobs somewhere else, and then begin to return to the coast in their active retirement years. And oh, by the way, the average minimum wage earner in this county is a 29-year-old single parent, which says to me that they graduated from high school, they've been in the workforce for 10 years, they're still earning minimum wage. And the message there is that we don't have opportunities for them to move up through the economy into better paying jobs that can sustain them and their families. So where your question was, where is the innovation coming from? Who are the innovators? And I point to the fact that a third of our population is over the age of 65. And I keep coming back to active retirement. People that have worked their entire lives, but harbored this little spark in the back of their head. If I ever had the time and the opportunity and the money, I'd start a business doing this. That's where the innovative opportunity is. Now, here's what the challenge is. You want to start a business making seaweed that tastes like bacon. And you know all about making seaweed taste like bacon, but you don't know anything about marketing or pricing or production or insurance or how to structure your business, what social media you need, what insurance you may need. And so we need the resources for those potential innovators to learn the business skills that go together with the innovation skills to create a successful model, which is one of the reasons that I've been such an ardent supporter of our Small Business Development Network, because that's exactly what they do, providing free counseling to people that want to start businesses and answering all those questions about how you build a business with a good idea. I think that's where the innovation comes from.
And I just want to riff off of that for a few seconds. Gray is the new green. In 13 years of doing rural economic development and working with entrepreneurs in the Midwest out here, I would probably say 80 to 85% of the entrepreneurs I discovered are second and third career entrepreneurs. And the other thing is 65 to 70% of them are women. And so it's that second and third career that's an untapped resource. I mean, we have to look at not only keeping our youth, but also, keep capturing the imagination of those incredible wisdom and experience that we've got here.
Awesome. I'll kind of riff off of that myself too. So this question was tailored actually for Heather and Erica. Off of that, how would you describe really our workforce here along the Oregon coast, and how would you kind of say we're unique compared to the workforce of, let's say, like the Willamette Valley or like the Portland Metro?
I can start on that one only because I tapped into my Oregon Employment Department resource, Eric Noder. So Eric, if you're listening, thank you for helping me answer this question. In general terms, and this is not maritime or blue economy related, but in general terms, the differences that were noted were that the coast has more teens and more 55-year-old plus individuals than Portland and the Mid-Willamette Valley, slightly more women than men, and more whites and Native Americans than the Valley and the Metro region, and more high school graduates which was surprising, and some college and AA degrees, and the coast has smaller firms, which was what Rep. Gomber was talking about with the small businesses. So there are differences. And of course, there's differences in earnings too. The coastal workforce earns an average of $3,423 a month, and the Willamette Valley workforce earns an average of $4,550, and probably it's higher even in Portland because the cost of living is higher there. So those are some numbers and some overall facts. But I would just say that rural, there's just a huge divide. We rely heavily on our community colleges because they do teach those business practices. We have in Benton County, we have OSU. But other than that, we rely a lot heavily on our community colleges to get those degrees. And then people who want four-year degrees have to, go elsewhere. So there's a little bit of a lack of graduate degree opportunities on the coast. But that was my biggest takeaway from what Eric sent me. So I don't know if that's helpful.
While you're passing the microphone down, let me add something to that, because Oregon is experiencing the fastest median family income growth in the entire country, but it's not equitably distributed across the entire state. The numbers indicate that the median family income in Portland has gone up in the last 10 years about 30%. But in Newport, Oregon, which is the economic driver in my district, it's gone down about 5%, 30% up, 5% down. And oh, by the way, the median family income here in Lincoln City, 30 miles away from Newport, is about $10,000 less than it is in Newport. So that's the point of the conversation we're having here tonight, is how to create sustainable, successful, income-producing businesses that are going to turn those trends around and give us the same kind of opportunities that people are experiencing in other parts of the state.
Yeah, the last thing I was going to add is that on the coast, I think compared especially to Portland, is we have a lot of seasonality, right? Like it is very common to work summer season here and then go work winter season in Mount Hood. It's called the water economy. We've got that term going on with them over there right now. And sometimes that's a good thing, right? Like, so when we're talking about this like bright young youth that left and never came back, some of them do come back. I came back, so have a little bit of faith, but because there was seasonality in tourism, I could put myself through college by working at the Pelican for years, right? So there's some benefits to that seasonality, but I think that there's also a big opportunity there. What innovations, what industries, what kind of jobs could we bring so that someone could have a job here year round. I think that's just something I was going to add too.
And going off of that, how do we support or evolve our workforce to promote the development of both existing coastal industries and then the emerging, like highly innovative industries that we're trying to grow here as well?
Well, I think the first answer to that question is infrastructure. If you don't have clean water coming out of the tap and dirty water going down the drain, you're not going to build any kind of business or any kind of community. And yet the water systems that we have here in the coast are aging out, and small towns can't afford the expense of replacing those water systems. You need an active, workable transportation network, like the improvements we made to Highway 20, so we could get in and out of Newport safely and in a timely basis. The container port that I was talking about a few minutes ago in Coos Bay, another major part of infrastructure. And infrastructure has got to also include our educational institutions, our community colleges, strengthening our schools. All of those things go to build the foundation that is critical and necessary to do anything else. I think that's the starting point of the conversation.
I guess I was going to say the thing that popped into my head as well is what you really need to do is you need to listen to the businesses and try to get as much predictability from them as possible, is what they think their workforce is going to look like in a couple of years and what they're not seeing. And one of the great advantages that we have with a really strong community college system is their nimbleness to be able to create those programs. And and then you could totally dive down into the blue economy, that there's a whole lot of curricular opportunities, both at the higher K through 12 level and through the community college level. and also into the university system that can help grow that workforce. And then there's maybe on-the-job training.
I would like to mention that there are some good success stories here in Oregon. I sit on the board the board of advisors for Oregon Sea Grant. And it's a very active Sea Grant here in Oregon that contributes a lot to the education in the local communities along the coast. And my particular experience being involved with like the MATE ROV competition and STEM education that's happening is great for engaging students at a low level and giving them some exposure to marine engineering and they had to create companies and give presentations, and it's a very cool program to be part of. But for it to be really successful, there has to be a good conveyor belt for the students to be exposed to these ideas, but then be able to find an internship where they're able to explore this or have local educational resources. And then from there have like honest work experience before they can move into a satisfactory career. And I think a challenge has been being able to do that all within this one community that might not have all of those different things, which requires them to go elsewhere and hopefully come back.
So I would just add to your point about on-the-job training that I think that there just needs to be more investment, more dedicated, intentional investment in the industry. It's a huge industry in the state of Oregon, both coastally and inland. And I know that through Senate Bill 867, which I keep talking about, it was a task force. It was a dedicated task force appointed by the governor. And had both public and private membership. And they really were tasked with defining maritime or the blue economy and picking some low-hanging fruit on how we could get some things accomplished. And then finally to asking the state board if they would prioritize the industry in order to have some additional investments. And investments. And so in the bill, and the community colleges came together and put a wish list together. We would love this kind of a simulator. We would love this technology. We would love some curriculum development money. We would love to hire new faculty to be able to take care of this. And then money to the workforce boards along the coast. There's 3 of us really that cover, including Lane County, money to help train individuals with the new curriculum, with the new simulators and technology. And I think without a dedicated, so that task force did a lot of great work in a short amount of time. But then they presented their report to the state board and there was nobody else who was in charge. And when no one's in charge, nothing gets done. You know what I mean? Nobody owns the thing. Like I was talking about your position and owning this. This is what you do. So, and then of course the task force was, they were appointed and they had careers and other things that they had to do all day. So I don't know the exact answer to it, but I do believe there needs to be, and maybe Connor, this will come from your efforts, there needs to be a dedicated body of people who have the technical and industry knowledge to be able to carry the work.
And I was just going to add 2 things that excited me about what I've heard. And so the first one is the idea of on-the-job training or an apprenticeship program. And so an example that comes to mind is, so I'm from Pacific City and we're known for having the dory fleet. And these are flat-bottomed wooden boats that we launch off of the beach. My dad and I go out, my dad rows it through the surf. And then when you come back in, you launch your boat flies up the beach. And if my dad said, Erica, tomorrow we want you to take the dory and become a commercial fisherman, I would be like, what? I have no idea how to do that. The technical expertise in order to do that kind of thing you can't learn that from a book. And I think a lot of commercial fishing is like that. And you really need that on the job training. And then, in other aspects of the blue economy, you need that on the job training. And in the high schools, my biggest pet peeve is when people ask kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? And people's teacher, veterinarian, police officer. I'm like, oh, you didn't want to be a seaweed farmer, a blue economy catalyst, a destination management professional? Those jobs don't even exist. And yet we're still like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And so I think that bringing these types of careers into high schoolers, especially in rural communities, is super important. The other thing that I thought was exciting that I think Heather mentioned, somebody mentioned, it was Paul, is learning from the businesses what they want and what they need. So I think a really good example, going back to this local seafood, is if you said, okay, well, let's stop getting seafood from Alaska and Washington. Let's just use it from the Oregon coast. Well, the next problem is that because we have been shipping that seafood in, it's coming cut up and packaged. We don't have a workforce on the coast that knows how to butcher our own seafood. So restaurants are saying, okay, like I've started making a commitment to using local catch, but my chef doesn't know how to cut up a rockfish, a ground fish. So that is just another way that we talk to businesses, understand their needs, work with the local workforce board to say, hey, how can we implement a training through, the Southwest Community College or the Oregon Coast Community College to start training people so that we can actually have a workforce that could cut up local seafood. It seems so simple, but quite complicated.
No, perfect example. And that is exactly what our funds do. We could hire an instructor to do a train the trainer in different restaurants so that we scale it. And yeah, it's just a matter of really brainstorming great ideas like that.
I definitely have more questions to riff off a lot of the points here. But I think honestly, this would be a good time to get the audience involved. And I wanted to give you all an opportunity to like ask questions here, or for those joining us on Zoom to chime in with some questions just to check in. And of course, I'm happy to rattle off more questions I have prepared, but I just want to make sure I gave you all the opportunity to speak if you'd like. So if you like, feel free to come up to the stage here if you have any burning questions that come to mind, and we'll answer them here.
Go. Hey, thank you all for being here. Representative Gomberg, you were already leaning into this question. We've talked a lot about the workforce challenges. So we have wages that are too low, and we have industries that are having a hard time bringing people, keeping people and bringing new workers. Have there been, Representative Gomberg, you'd probably know this, have there been efforts to marry innovation and this problem? So specifically looking at the industries that are suffering on either end of that spectrum and bringing them together in a room with innovators to try and find out ways to improve their work, their businesses, their industries, so that they can pay better, or they perhaps don't need as many people. Both innovations can work in both directions. Have there been efforts? Do you see that being a potential opportunity?
Well, have there been efforts? I think the answer to have there been efforts is both yes and no. And our conversation tonight is about the blue economy, but we can't talk about the economy without talking about the things that are holding us back. We can create all the great paying jobs in the world, and it's not going to do us a bit of good if we don't have a place for those potential employees to live, or if we don't have childcare that they can find and afford so that they can leave the kids someplace else when they come to that wonderful new job that we have created. Those challenges that I think we face across the entire state, but particularly here at the coast. And are we trying to do some work on it? Yes. The housing situation, we just brought home $6.5 million to start building a housing facility at the Hatfield Center, which will be designed for their staff, their students, and for the general public. But I think to your more pointed question, are we trying to find opportunities to talk to specific industry sectors and identify what their unique challenges are and address those unique challenges? I guess I would say that that we're starting to do that here tonight.
Okay, thank you very much.
We do have a question from the chat from Bill Davis. What are the ideas for financing the blue economy beyond the government sector, and looking into alternative pools of funding here along the coast?
Well, I think, one thing to look at very obviously is that the investment and equity investment in coastal businesses has just been so low. I mean, you kind of shared with us a stat. We've been looking at that. It's disproportionately low. Does that mean that there aren't good ideas happening here? No. To me, it comes down to discoverability again, and also a challenging thing, which is scalability, because a lot of when you're thinking of investment, you're looking, those investors are looking for those second stage companies that are ready to launch into something. And that means scaling to places where they can make a lot of money investing in those businesses. It's rare that we have that many opportunities for those businesses that are that big. But I think what we could look at is, are there opportunities where we can kind of combine some opportunities together, like if we're talking about like seaweed aquaculture or things like that, where there could maybe be some kind of investment pool, and there needs to be some work locally and regionally to sort of sell that sizzle with the bacon, and to create those opportunities to scale so it becomes an attractive investment asset in a portfolio. And investors always are looking for opportunities to make money, and we just have to be able to package that a little bit better. And generally rural doesn't do that all that well, but I think one of the things that kind of coalescing and defining and identifying the blue economy helps to make that more aware, so we can kind of tell our story and basically create that whole coastal pitch deck, if you will.
So you're asking about investment in blue economy opportunities. And I've got two answers to that question, and it's a complex question that deserves more than just two answers. The first, I'll come back, as I said, to the foundation, putting state revenues into a world-class university here that addresses some of our concerns, into our community colleges, spending statewide transient lodging tax dollars to help promote tourism or to help those new businesses find their new employees. That's part of the foundation, and we're making those investments. But at the end of the day, you want to open a seafood restaurant. Where do you get the money to do that with? Historically, what people typically do is they take their life savings or their credit cards, or they mortgage their house. Those are all scary options. And scary options is another way of saying disincentives. But I'm pleased that this last legislative session, we made some changes in startup revenues that we make available to qualifying businesses so that they can borrow from the state up to $100,000. It used to, I think the level used to be at about $10,000, and that's not realistic at all. So we boosted that up to $100,000 for startup businesses. And sure, there's some criteria, but I'll tell you that getting those loans from the state, with all due respect, will be easier than getting them from your local banker.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Well, I do want to ask one more question, pivoting a little bit, but so Rain, which is the parent company of Startup Blue, their mission is focused on building inclusive entrepreneurial ecosystems and ensuring diversity, equity, and inclusion for all types of entrepreneurs. So how do we preserve and address the views and needs of all types of community members when building Oregon's blue economy?
Everybody smiles and looks at their neighbors. I started out this conversation tonight talking about new opportunities, but also strengthening and preserving current industries within the blue economy. I think that's a really important conversation because there's the potential for conflicts. And I think the way that we address that is by talking to people and listening, both talking and listening sincerely and openly, and getting people all together in the same room so that we can edge our way toward win-win scenarios rather than win-loss scenarios. I think that's a really critically important part of change.
And I think kind of getting back to what Heather said earlier, as far as trying to sell the career pathway or to help them discover the career pathway. through the K through 12 school system. I mean, there is a perfect place to really reach out to those historically underrepresented communities who are very well representative as representative students. And I know that there's some really interesting programs going on through STEM and the Oregon Coast Aquarium that are addressing Latinx children in paid internship opportunities. So I think there's a real opportunity in that safe space to really open some eyes and use maybe those children of maybe foreign-born parents to bring that message back home. And here's an exciting career pathway for me. I'm learning about this. I can help you learn about it as well.
So I would just add that, and it's been mentioned several times tonight, that one of our primary resources for information are the businesses themselves. And I would be remiss in my job if I wasn't consulting my businesses and asking them what they need from me. So to that, I would also say that there are, just like there are minority-owned businesses, there are minority-owned and female-owned maritime and blue economy businesses. I'd say getting a roundtable of those folks around a table to talk about their needs and to make sure that they have a voice at the table needs to be intentional. And the demographics of the state of Oregon are such that the people of color are not hugely present, and we need to be intentional about getting them present to the table and talking to them.
Thank you. Well, I think, are there any other questions from the audience, or yeah, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. Hey, I had a question about something we haven't quite really talked about yet, but I was wondering how you see this space kind of supporting careers and internships in conservation and restoration and management of habitats, be it ocean or estuary or in-stream spawning grounds of things that don't necessarily generate income per se, but all of these other industries kind of rely on. Thanks.
One thing that popped up, and I'm kind of cheating because Drummond and I were at a lunch presentation today about the Pac Wave project, and just thinking about the more there are innovative experiments, or actually once they figure it out and they're having like wave generated things, there are going to be impacts to the ocean environment as because of that. And there's going to need to be people who monitor that, scientists who study that. I think it's naive to think that we aren't going to be seeing more wave-based energy, ocean-based energy, marine hydrogen, things like that. But that also, with that kind of as a slipstream, creates those career opportunities for those scientists or those entry-level science positions that can monitor, that can really make sure that those impacts are within reason for the ecosystem. So I'm thinking there's an opportunity there, and Drummond's nodding, so I'll go, that was maybe a decent answer.
I'm so glad you asked, because I've had this fact on my computer and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to get this fact out. So as the tourism perspective, of course, I'm going to say like an entry level way to have a career in conservation is through tourism. Without having to go get a huge college degree and go into debt. And so when I was preparing for this, I was thinking like, okay, what are the destinations around the world that I've interviewed in my podcast or I've just kept an eye on that always stand out to me as just like really incredible as like sustainable tourism in a coastal area. And to me, it always ends up being Palau. Like I'm in love with Palau and I'm in love with Iceland. But for this example, we're going to use Palau. I had the opportunity to travel there a couple of years ago. And it's a small island nation in the South Pacific. It's like the shark capital of the world. So got to dive with sharks. Shark Week happens there. Super incredible. So I was like, okay, if someone has figured out tourism, blue economy, it's Palau. So I found this article, and Palau has one of the largest marine protected areas in the world. It's twice the size of Mexico. And I'm sure, as that process happens, like imagine doing that here, it would be very controversial and tricky. And we do have 5 marine reserves on the Oregon coast. And so they had this fact, and I was like, bingo, Connor's going to love this. So they were showing how this sanctuary is like such a good example for the tourism industry and conservation. And it found that one reef shark during its full life is worth $1.9 million to Palau in tourism revenue. On the flip side, a shark sold for consumption was only worth around $108. So in other words, a shark being worth 17,000 times more when swimming in the ocean than on a dinner plate not only makes ecological sense, it makes business sense too. And so I think that's such a good example. I think sometimes we stay in the shallow end of tourism. We think hotels and restaurants, but there's also an experience, and there's a big gap for that, for innovators to start creating these. Now, am I saying we should start shark tourism on the Oregon coast? Not necessarily. It's a little bit of different water. It's a little darker and colder here, but we are bringing back a keystone species, the sea otter, right? So we have the Arica Alliance that's been making huge waves and getting a lot of attention. I think we actually saw a sea otter for the first time in 100 years. So when we start comparing the value of that sea otter to a tourist going on South Coast tours out of Port Orford to see it versus what its pelt used to be worth, like you're going to start seeing that conservation and tourism really go hand in hand. And it's kind of an entry level way of starting to work in that space.
And they won't eat you.
And sea otters are much cuter than sharks.
Have you seen a hungry sea otter? Ooh.
Well, awesome. Well, if there aren't any other questions in the audience, sir, you have a question?
I'm Dan. We've talked a lot, or I've heard a lot of talk about different stages of applying the blue economy to the rural economy out here. I've heard about loan programs to try and assist people in getting started. We've heard about the idea of packaging different mid-level ideas into a larger, more appealing package. But I think the part that I'm still a little foggy on that might be helpful for other people too is what is the starting point? I mean, for these people in the rural economy that either have an innovation as an optimization of an existing technology like a fishing net or a safety feature on their boat, to anybody who has a new innovation or invention. I mean, what is the starting point? What are the resources to really get those people connected, to get them the resources that they need to then move forward with this innovation? I mean, if that's the whole point, I'm just curious what resources there are.
And I want to jump in on an introductory comment because that's a really great question that you had. And one of the things I think is incumbent on all of us who sort of work in this space, and it's not just the blue space, but say business support and business development, is to make sure that each and every one of us is a viable starting point, that we know we might not be the person who can take your idea to where it needs to be, but we know who that person is. And in the blue economy, if you've got like the Better Mousetrap widget, the pathway right now is to go to Connor to can help. If there's things he can't provide, he knows who the entrepreneurial support things are. He knows how to get that idea vetted through Hatfield and the iLab. So there is a pathway, but you also pointed out a really big, important task for all of us to do is not only all of us being an accessible starting point, but letting people know that we're that.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think, and to add on that, like at this current junction, like, yeah, the purpose of my role here is to provide that support system to budding, or what we like to call like entrepreneurs, regardless of like what type of business resources they may need. Maybe it's understanding how to write a business model canvas and how to monetize their idea. Like, what does that look like? Maybe it's exposure media and needing a connection to like a media outlet or like the local news here. There's millions of potential examples. But additionally, like, the end goal isn't for me to be the like bottleneck, right? And offer those services to every individual person. But like, we want to slowly kind of build this ecosystem of entrepreneurship where there's multiple people here, like within the community, able to provide business accesses and resources and connections to like makers labs like at Hatfield, and just kind of growing that more and more and more, just acquiring more traction and more support in general. Because we all hit a certain bandwidth of how much we can help with people, right? And it takes more people and more resources in order to help more budding entrepreneurs. So
Thank you. You know, I touched on this earlier this evening, but each of the community colleges up and down the coast has a small business development center. And our Lincoln County Small Business Development Director is here behind the camera. I'm going to put him on the spot and ask him to come out in front of the camera for a minute. And David, my question is this. I just invented the greatest new crab net in the world, and I want to start a business. And I call you up and say, what do I do next? In maybe 30 seconds or so, can you tell us what the SBDC system would offer me with my new invention?
If you're talking about coming to you with your new crab net today and reaching out to the SBDC, it would take us not long in our conference room, looking across the table at you, to follow exactly the map that Paul just said, which is to send you to Connor and the iLab and to be vetted by that process, under the full knowledge that if Connor and the team there says, gosh, you know, right now at this stage where you are, maybe we're not ready for the iLab. Maybe there's some more fundamental business planning to be done. Maybe there is, you know, you need to reevaluate access to capital, whatever that case may be. He may hand it back to us or to some other resource. But in a particular marine case, like you just mentioned, absolutely. And that's what we would do.
there's a lot of guest appearances coming on stage today. It's great. Well, I think we kind of hit this 7 o'clock mark. I think we've had fantastic discussion all around, and I appreciate everyone's time and engagement thus far. I'm happy to leave it at final remarks. If there's anything that maybe we didn't discuss via the questions, any parting words regarding the blue economy, like feel free.
So I would just say to you, Connor, and to everyone listening, whoever's listening out there and in here, there's clearly an interest in this topic. And as the workforce board for this region, one of our jobs is to be a convener. And so I'm happy to say that I will go and, you know, you and I, Connor, can get together and talk about what we call a launch, which is to have public sector folks around a table like everyone here, and then our cadre of business owners or business people in the conversation where they can talk and we can listen. And so that would be, I think, a nice next step. We started to do the launch back in the day, and then Senate Bill 867 came along and kind of shut that down while the task force did their work. And then the pandemic hit, and so here we are, but ready to jump on board and reignite this with you.
And yeah, I want to kind of point out, and Heather brought this up before, is there's a lot of work currently being done. And it's not like we haven't had these conversations and we're not thinking about this all the time, and some very specific things that our organization is a part of. We actually pulled together a pretty strong coastal coalition when we went for an EDA Build Back Better grant for the coast, for the blue economy, that was not successfully funded because there were, I'd like to think, you know, it's not because we didn't write the most perfect grant in the world. Of course we did. But because there were some challenges in making a case as a rural environment, that was sort of baked into the scoring. But what riffed out of that was an award that's going to be coming through in the next couple of months through the SBA, through the latest omnibus funding bill, that we're getting $1 million of congressionally directed funding coming through our organization that is going to be subgranted out to convene those people to pay attention to that process and to find those overlaps all along the coast and to bring that coalition together and have them doing things. And whether that means we're actually standing up the Oregon Ocean Innovation Hub as an entity, or we're creating MOUs and agreements, there are resources out there that are going to help us build that coalition to support that business. And the other thing that we kind of hinted on, that's another thing that's getting worked on, and it's going to be funded in large part through Business Oregon's Industry Competitiveness Fund, is doing a blue economy workforce sector survey. And Heather's organization is going to be a part of that. We're going to sort of manage some of that. It's going to be developed through Econ Northwest. But if you think about one of the things when you're talking about like the classification, what is the blue economy and things like that, blue economy to me is a word like multimedia. It's always going to have kind of a soft squishiness, and we can't avoid that. But when you boil down, there are occupational codes, there are industry classifications, and the blue economy needs to be represented in those properly. And, right now, if you think about like how many people are doing marine welding, that's a huge career path. But if you're looking at the occupational codes, that's just welding. So an economist looks like that, and there's no need for blue economy welders. We need to specify and create that granularity in the data so we know how to talk to businesses, how to go after the dollars, because we've got those classifications. So that work is happening and there is funding out there. So I just wanted to say, it's not like we're starting from scratch. There's a lot of work that's ongoing, and there's funding available, and it's been committed to make some of that stuff happen.
Yeah, final thoughts. I just wanted to say, like, this is going to sound so corny, but this panel is like what our meetings sound like. I've met with all these people, and this is actually the type of conversations we're having. This type of work is happening. So I think we're really fortunate when we're talking about Oregon Coast Blue Economy. We have a very collaborative and well-connected group of people that are already working together. As far as tourism goes, if you are working in the blue economy on the Oregon coast or elsewhere, and you're not talking to your coastal tourism entity, I would highly recommend you do that. We also, if we're talking about seafood competitiveness, who's going to market that unique proposition to the rest of the world? Probably your tourism entity. And then for anybody that wants to start a new business in the blue economy, I definitely consider tourism. What are the tourism trends? Because there's a large buying power. There's a large amount of people that are coming as tourists to buy your products and your experiences. So I highly recommend you explore the tourism industry as an option. We're also paying for your kids' college so they can go be an incredible marine scientist. We have that seasonality, so it sounds like a sales pitch, but just different ways to think about the tourism industry as part of this blue economy.
For closing remarks, I'd just like to say and echo some of the other remarks people have made, that the resources do exist. And as someone who's lived here for 15 years, I've seen things come and go, but in all, I feel like there's a very good trajectory, and there's a lot of momentum behind building up this blue economy, which kind of starts with defining it and then realizing what resources already exist within this community. I think that just like Connor is a blue economy innovation catalyst, there are other companies that can catalyze and help entrepreneurs who are trying to create something new, to either learn from the experiences of other companies or leverage the experience of other companies to be successful. And I think one of the ways that we do that is by entering in a community and having panels like this, where we get people who don't necessarily sit at the table with each other all the time, to be able to have these conversations. And the more we do that, the more I think that the momentum will carry, and we'll actually be able to create programs that have real teeth in them and will be successful in the future.
Thank you. That was actually a great closing remark, because I agree wholeheartedly. Like, even though my term has catalysts in it, like everyone sitting here is a catalyst in each their own special way, whether you're just simply an advocate or you're someone with access to, a ton of potential funding for potential entrepreneurs. So anyway, thanks again for all your time. I want to give the panelists and everyone here a round of applause. So a couple stuff for me to plug. For starters, if you're an entrepreneur or someone with a burning idea for the blue economy, sign up, check out Startup Blue. Love to talk to you, learn about you, what your goals or ideas are within this realm, and potentially work with you on your idea. Secondly, we are planning a inventathon at Hatfield, targeted around June timeframe. So we're looking for volunteers, mentors, sponsors, and of course participants. So I have a intake form that I made that I can share via Zoom or just publicly with everyone via email after this. And then lastly, most exciting, we have a new position available, a marine innovator in residence, where we're looking for someone who's experienced in scaling maritime companies or experience in the maritime innovation ecosystem. So details on that role, the responsibilities, and the compensation will be online very soon. So keep your eyes peeled for an email from me. And that's pretty much it. So thanks again to everyone coming along today. I hope you enjoyed sitting at home, the chance to learn more about Oregon's blue economy, and we look forward to seeing you at our next event. Thanks.